What's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to go over 4 variables that I track closely throughout the fishing season to plan where I'm going to be going fishing. Now, we all have jobs and other obligations to work around, so time on the water is limited, unfortunately. So when we do have time to go out there, or maybe we have a couple of opportunities throughout the week, we need to select the best one to make that time count. So these 4 variables include the moon phase, the wind direction, as well as the intensity, the weather, and the tide. So this is going to work much better, obviously, if you've been keeping a fishing journal. I'm going to put a link below to one of my other videos where I explain the entire process. And once you've been keeping that journal for a decent amount of time, you'll be able to remember how these variables affect your specific locations. There is no moon phase that produces well in every location. There is no wind that produces well in every location. There is no tide, and there is no weather pattern that produces well in every location. That's why we need to keep a journal, and we need to understand how all these variables come together to affect the different spots we'll be fishing. And that's how you improve your overall success rate. Especially if you're new, the quicker you can learn this and get this down, the faster you're going to start catching much, much more. So the first variable I'm going to cover is the tide. So if let's say, I get out of work at 8 o'clock and I want to be out there until maybe midnight. Maybe I don't have to get up too early the next morning, but whatever it may be, that's when I can go out. So I'm going to look at the tides. I'm going to pick all the spots in mind that I think I want to hit, and I'm going to look at what the tide's going to be. Now, let's say it's going to be, during those 3 hours, it's going to be the mid-range of the outgoing tide. Well, all the spots in my journal where the incoming tide or, any other portion of the tide is when the bite is are crossed off. We just narrowed that down to the few spots that are really good on that section of the tide. Then from there, I take into consideration, well, what direction is the wind going to be blowing and how strong is it going to be? So from there, we have all our spots where it's productive on that tide. And then we're going to narrow it down to those spots where that specific wind also produces. Like let's say I can think of 2 spots where they produce well on an outgoing tide. If I have let me try to remember this. If I have a northwest wind, one spot's going to produce very, very well. The other one, I'm probably not going to find fish. And if I have a strong south wind, the other spot's going to produce really well. And in the first spot, I'd be lucky to get a bite. And funny enough, these spots are only a couple miles away from each other. So that's why it's important to keep track of these because, again, let's say one spot's not producing, you might not have to go very far to find the fish somewhere else under the same conditions. So that covers wind and tide. We understand how they go together. After that, I'm going to look at the moon phase. Now, if I have a full moon, that can sometimes be a little bit too bright. So if I have another night that week where I just want to, spend a lot of time fishing one night, I might go for a cloudier night. But other than that, let's say, I'm fishing, I get a couple of different inlets to fish from, and the strength of the full moon makes the current on one so powerful that the fish don't feed, which can happen sometimes. And then the full moon maybe on a weaker inlet nearby, the back bay section, the salt marsh is smaller, not as much water, picks that up to the point where maybe the fish head over there. And if, again, you're keeping track of this, now you know. So that narrows the spot down even further. And the last thing I'm going to check, this is if I have multiple nights to fish, is, the weather. Is it going to be raining? If so, how has that affected these different spots? The change in pressure system, in my experience, not so much the rain itself, but the change in pressure, the coming or going of a storm front. And, I'm going to double check for lightning while I'm at it. So take these 4 variables, keep close track of them throughout the season. They're all easy to monitor. Tide charts are available online. The Weather Channel gives you the weather, as well as the wind direction and the intensity, and also when the wind's going to shift. And the moon phase is also available online. So I literally pull out my phone when I'm at work, go through all of these, and decide where I'm going that night. It's that simple. So keep your journal, keep these in mind, subscribe for more videos like these, and I'll catch you next time.